Hello, I'm Matt Peterson.
And I'm Rich Trapier.
And this is episode 46 of History on the Table. Rich.
Yeah.
Busy month.
Has been a
busy
busy
time
month.
of year.
It's almost April. Which means
It is almost
3 weeks from tonight, I'm going to be at a con. It's going to be awesome. And you won't be there, you loser.
I won't. But you know what else is 3 weeks? Less than 3 weeks from tonight.
What's that?
Bom, 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 bom. The 2023 History on the Table draft.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. We got that coming up.
Are you ready?
I am not ready at all. I need to think about my draft strategy. I need to get my war board up and everything.
Yeah, so a little fun episode, because April's will be, I assume we'll dive into a lot of what you played at SwankyCon.
Yep.
And April's always a busy month for me, so April's going to be a little
Sure.
silly, a little weird, and so a little fun. We have some special guests joining us for the first ever. The NFL draft is rolling through Kansas City this year. And so I said, hey, let's do that. Let's have our own draft. So
Nice.
Every game is eligible, and we're going to have a little thing. So you can look for that around April 17th. That's at least when we're recording. I don't know when it'll be out, but shortly after.
Yeah. I think it'd be fun to watch people build their strategy, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's not just about war games. It's going to be, you know, you get to pick these games, and these are the only games you ever get to own the rest of your life.
These are your games.
Build your small collection.
And there's at least 3 of the 5 teams, individuals, are U.S. Civil War fans, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah. Nice. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. People are going to be talking about it for years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're going to have a little fun with it, too. We're going to give each other draft grades, and then we're going to put the team lists out there, team roster, and then if people want to participate, they can give us a draft grade. And we've got
we should
special
let everyone
guests.
else vote on who won the draft as well.
Oh, well, yeah. It's whoever took U.S. Civil War. We'll save you the time. Before that special episode, though, next Friday, April 7th, depending on when you're listening to this, we're recording on the 31st. April 7th, 2023 at 8:15 Central Time. Got to get the little ones to bed. We will be streaming the 2022 Historical Board Game Awards. So the fan vote is in. The votes have been tallied, and we have our winners, and we have a little stream planned for that. Should be a good time. Nothing.
You got the envelopes all made up and everything?
Yeah, that's not quite that fancy, but it should just be a good time hanging out, talking about great games. I'm not wearing a tux, I'll tell you that. And then finally, Rich, you have a convention, but in August, here in Kansas City, we have a convention. HistoriKC Fest is just over 4 months away.
Wow, that's nice to hear. I'm absolutely looking forward to that one. I'm going with my college-age daughter this time, and she and I are both really looking forward to going to it. In fact, I started posting some games up that we want to play, and want some other people to join us on.
And I saw those. I need to approve them. It's been a week.
Yeah.
And I'll get those on there, which is a great way to say you're encouraged this year to really use the Tabletop Events website. Even if you're, hey, Rich and I are going to play this on Sunday morning. It lets us plan tables. And if you want to see what's out there, you can browse the events before you even register, all that stuff. And then on Facebook, as we get closer, I'm going to be featuring events that are still looking for players. So I know we have a game of Virgin Queen that's still looking for more players. I think we have one more spot in our Founding Fathers game, which is going to be outstanding. Just things like that. Of course, we have the Last 100 Yards tournament, Next War tournament scenario, AMAs with Mitch, dinners with the designers, ASL. There's all kinds of stuff going on. So we're going to be featuring that, but go check out the schedule and don't be afraid to use your own events. It just helps us plan. So August 17th through August 20th, 4 days of gaming in Kansas City. Just go to historicfest.com. There's going to be a link in the show notes.
Nice. I'm looking forward to that.
I really am
DonkeyCon
too.
and HistoriKC Fest are going to be my 2 anchors every year.
That's awesome. And hopefully VikingCon.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I think that's it for news. That's it for news for me, at least.
Yeah. We'll talk about the the gaming company news, GMT and stuff later, but that's it.
All right, sweet. Well, I have a couple games. I'm going to get the one of them out of the way really quick, and that's Mesofauna. This is, have you heard of like Megafauna and Biogenesis? from...
It seems like I've heard of them, but I can't really place them. I definitely have not played them.
They're a series of games tracking kind of the evolution of species on Earth over time. And it's from the same designer that did Greenland, which we played at VikingCon.
Right.
And Mesofauna is the bug period.
Okay.
And I find it super interesting. There was another game that Phil Eklund did back in the 90s that they're like reprinting, but they're just doing like a copy version of it, like no new updates or anything. It's here's our 90s version. And it was really pricey. And our buddy Rex told me about Mesofauna. And so I grabbed that. It's got these wonderful little critter meeples called creeples. And we played the very, very, very basic kind of family intro game. And I'm not going back to that. There's no real reason to replay that. But it was nice to get the like basics down. And my wife liked it okay. She said, I'll play it if you suggest it, but she'll never pick it. I really liked what it had to show.
How does it compare to Dominant Species?
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Okay.
Well, I've only played Dominant Species Marine. I
saw that actually Marine was on sale at Miniature Market this week for $50, and I almost picked it up.
That's a good price. Yeah. If you like, this is going to sound weird, but if you like action selection, almost worker placement games, that's what Marine is, and I think it does it really well. I don't know if you remember, but it was like number 7 on my top 6 list last year.
Yeah, I know you enjoyed it, and I've played the original one, just Dominant Species, but I haven't played Marine, so.
This is a little bit more flexible from what I understand. And so Mesofauna, you compete for areas, and it's hard to say until we get to the more advanced stuff, but the first 2 versions are really about just spreading out as fast as you can, and it's just a race to get points. And then there's a whole butterfly variant, which is the whole main game, and you have a bunch of more interaction in different ways to win. It's just not a race to get victory points. But
cool.
I'm very excited about it. It's a great looking game. It was not hard to learn at all. Sometimes those Eklund games can be hard to grok.
Yeah, cool.
All right, the other one I'm so excited for, Red Winter, is finally in my possession. I think we've talked about it.
Sure.
It is the game. I think it was one of the first games I ever P500'd. I had a geek list when I got into war games, and I don't think you can still find the geek list. I think it's hidden or private. Whether it's out there or not doesn't matter, but it's on there. And well, I got tired of waiting.
So, did it never hit 500? Is that what the holdup is, or what happened?
It's somewhere in the art department, so I'm not sure.
But it's been, what, years? I'm assuming it was the first one you ever P500'd.
Well, so when I P500'd the second edition, it was not at 500.
Okay.
And I want to say around when I started the podcast, it was a little shy, but it's since eclipsed that, and it's been stuck in that nearing art department readiness. And so Andrew on our Discord server posted his for sale, and I bought it right away.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's one of the games I wanted to play for the most time. It's Finland. It's supposed to be a fantastic operational game that I think they lost some of the charm when they tried to do Operation Dauntless, is what I've heard. I haven't played either, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of the Discord server, I noticed the marketplace has been very active lately, which is great. I mean, a lot of people moving games around to other people that are going to play them, so it's good to see. I've picked up some, and I've moved some that way.
Yeah, you're a good buddy and acquaintance. I've only had a great dinner with him once, or Bruce. I know he's taken some advantage of it for sure.
Yep, yeah.
Awesome. All right, well that's all that's on my shelves.
Yeah, I did not pick up anything this month. I was thinking I had, but the last war game that I got was from Bruce, and that was last 100 yards. So technically, I did buy something from Miniature Market. I bought another Commander deck so I could play 3-player at home. But
oh no, this is devastating. Rich and I just lost our call. That has never happened before. All right, folks, sorry about that. Midwest storms rolling through, and all the years we've done this, I have forgotten to hit record before, but we've never disconnected like that.
No,
very weird and abrupt.
We're good to go though.
So the last thing I heard is you had not purchased any war games, but you did pick up Commander deck?
Yep. That was the only thing I picked up. So I've got 3 now, so we can play at home with me and my 2 daughters because they both really like playing it. I've been playing. I know we're off topic now, but I've been playing Magic with my youngest one, like at coffee shops and stuff. We just got 2 decks that we'll just get out real quick and play. But all 3 of us are enjoying it. So, but no, I haven't picked up any war games other than that.
But you did pick up a book about war.
Yeah, so and actually I've kind of picked it up twice because you and I both talked about how much we love Dan Jones. And this all came from me getting Men of Iron back on the table. So I've been wanting to read this one for a while. I started reading The Wars of the Roses by Dan Jones.
So good.
Yeah, so I've read Plantagenets, I've read Templars. Feels like I've read something else, but I can't think of it right now. But this one picks up right where Plantagenets left off, basically. And it was funny because I'm listening to it. I got a few hours into it, and then my wife just kind of looked at me on my phone one day, and she goes, "Oh, you're listening to the next Dan Jones book?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she goes, "I wanted to listen to that." So we restarted it. So we just today caught back up to where I was. And it's Dan Jones. It's good stuff. It's entertaining. It's interesting. And I think I'm going to keep Men of Iron on the table and sort of fight through the battles as they come up in the books.
So good.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
I did not do every battle in order, but I did I started with oh my gosh, what's the first? Is it Agincourt? No, yeah, St. Albans. Yeah. Which is just a bloodbath, but I was determined to start there.
Yeah.
Good. So a new author to us, or at least someone we went talked about, and this was someone I hadn't heard of, but I was talking to my aunt about it, and she's like, "You don't know who that is? Do you know who Doris Kearns Goodwin is?"
Absolutely, and I've wanted to read this book for a long time. I've always thought it was interesting, and I'm glad to see you're reading it, because maybe it'll encourage me to get to it.
Yeah, it's very good. So I'm reading Team of Rivals, the political genius of Abraham Lincoln, and what it is, it's basically a biography of Lincoln, but while also comparing him to the other nominees for the Republican Party at the time of his election. So Salmon Chase, Edward Bates, Seward, they were all part of the Republican National Convention, yada, yada, yada. It's very good so far. And how it came across my desk is in April, I'll be going to there's a big event that the Truman Library puts on each year, and she is speaking there. And the other person speaking there was pretty interesting as well. Sorry, I had some audio issues there. She was the first female 4-star admiral in the Navy.
Oh, yeah, I can see her, but I can't think of her name right now. Grace Hopper.
I can't confirm that because I'm still Googling the event, but...
Okay. I think it's Grace Hopper.
No, Michelle Howard.
Oh, okay.
So she was the first woman to achieve the rank of 4-star admiral and the first woman to be appointed to the position of vice chief of naval operations. So she's being honored. Doris Kearns Goodwin is speaking, and that sounds awesome. So I took the opportunity to dive into one of her books, and there's some stuff on Roosevelt, and, well, she's got several books. So I went for the Lincoln book, and it's very good.
Cool.
It's long. It's very long.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to check that out sometime too. It's been on my radar for a long time.
Yeah, I'll let you know. But I am enjoying it so far. And the other long book I started, maybe jumping the gun a little bit with what I thought April's game would be. We'll talk about that later. Wilderness Empire by Allan Eckert. This is one of those books if you're like me, when you start playing a game, you check BGG for threads about recommended reading for Wilderness War or something like that. And Wilderness Empire is one of those books that came up as recommended reading. It's also very good. I see why it's recommended. I'm reading it in paper, which isn't always the easiest thing for me to do, but I haven't had any problems, 10, 15 minutes before I fall asleep at night picking this up, doing some curls with it because it's a big boy too, and it's good.
Nice. Yeah, I've got one that I just recently picked back up on paper too. It's Texian Iliad, which I've talked about before because I started reading it, I think, last year and picked up something else. I can't remember why. I think it's because I was reading something related to a game, but I recently picked this one back up. So, yeah, I'll talk more about that next month. Hopefully I'll get more into it.
Very good. All right, well, that's kind of the new stuff we're doing. Let's dive into the games, folks.
You've had a good month.
I did. It ended up being just a really great month with some great games getting played. And I'm only talking about the war games. We also had like family, some friends over for a game night. We're going to start doing that every month. Really looking forward to that with, light Euros and things like Ticket to Ride and stuff. But we're not talking about that. We're talking war games, historical games. At the Kansas City Historical Game Group, we had a great turnout, over 15 people this week, largely supported by everyone at the Command General Staff College up at Fort Leavenworth. They were dimming some really cool games. But I played War of the Triple Alliance, which I talked about last year. This covers the conflict between Paraguay, Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very light, I don't want to say it's not card-driven game, but at the end of each turn, depending on which cities or key spots you take, you draw a certain amount of cards, and you're going to pick one to be in effect for the next round. It doesn't drive how many activations you can do or anything like that. It just gives you some kind of bonus effect. And combat, I'll start with that, is very straightforward. You line up your troops against each other, and you just try to roll below a number. And you just keep going until someone retreats and it's like 2s or less a lot of the time. So you're just chucking dice.
And what's the time frame on this one again?
It's like 1800s, I think.
Okay.
And it's not a topic that is gamed much. I think there's an Against the Odds magazine.
Sure.
But so the combat certainly left a lot to be desired, but we were kind of doing a little post-op after we played, our buddy Zach and I. And where this game shines is the maneuvering and kind of the race aspect. Racing to either there's a region north of Paraguay that Paraguay wants to knock Brazil out of, so they don't have to worry about fighting a two-front war. And the Triple Alliance wants to knock out the capital of Uruguay, so Uruguay joins their side. But Paraguay, on its west and southern border, has 2 massive rivers, and those are very hard to get against. Mm-hmm. And so you're kind of weighing against going to crush that, but also either blocking the Triple Alliance from getting a foothold on the river, or if they already have one, like as a Triple Alliance, you start out really weak. And so I lost all my footholds on the river, and the game, I knocked out Uruguay, no problem. But then it turned into, I have no way of getting across this river. And so it's very light. I think it played in maybe 3 hours.
And is it a 3-player game?
2 players only.
Okay.
Yeah, so one player's playing the Triple Alliance. They start out really weak. Paraguay starts out really strong, and they're just trying to hold on, and they want to speed the game up. They want to churn through their cards, and the Triple Alliance wants to slow it down, and they want to make sure that they can drive into Paraguay. It's good. It's very fun, but don't go in expecting like a robust combat system. It's not there. You're playing this game just to, tackle this interesting problem of either surviving as Paraguay, how do you do that, or what's the best strategy for the Triple Alliance to have enough time to knock Paraguay out. It's
nice.
Really good. Something a couple people told me from one of the guys I went to high school with his son. He was there, and he had the statistic, and someone from the fort had the statistic that some exorbitant amount of Paraguay's male population died, like 60 or 80% or something like that. I have no idea what the statistic is, but during that time period, like most of their male population perished.
Wow. Yeah,
and they were just stubborn, and they wouldn't give up.
On that light note, so I played a game also. I played Men of Iron. Patrick was actually in town. Our secretary Patrick was in town for the week, so I got to see him a couple times last week or 2 weeks ago. I think it was just last week. But one night he came over and we played some Men of Iron together. So it's great. We talked about it last year in depth when we reviewed it. I don't think I've played it since we reviewed it, actually. So we played a game from Blood and Roses. Can't remember the name of the battle, but it was pretty cool. It had fog rules in effect, so the ranged weapons were basically useless, and the horses couldn't charge and stuff like that. So it was interesting. We didn't get to play the whole game, but he rounded my flank and was starting to roll me up when it was time for him to head out. So great game. It just reminded me of how good that game is, and it makes me want to play some more. So I actually kept it on my table, reset it, and started replaying the battle. And I'm going to play some of the other ones as well as we read through Wars of the Roses.
Yeah, Men of Iron is pretty damn good, and seeing that and having people talk about it, or when I pull it out or anything like that, it's just this is really good.
And I guess technically what I played is Blood and Roses from the Men of Iron tri-pack. So
good. Well, I played a classic that I never played before, old AA, Andean Abyss.
What'd you think?
Well,
you're getting back into coin lately.
I have. This has really been a coin month for me. We're supposed to have a Liberty or Death game. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what happened to our Fallen Sky game. I think that has perished. And then
I think we made it one turn in.
yeah. And then Patrick and I are doing Colonial Twilight. I just need to read the rules.
Yeah.
I don't want to go in completely.
CT is great because it's 2-player. I mean,
sure.
that's literally like the best thing about that game. And it's not to say that it's not a good game, but it's just it moves along so much faster because it's 2-player.
Yeah, our All Bridges. So we'll talk about All Bridges Burning, of course. That's our featured game. But our play by Discord version of that is like just snapping along, pretty good. Like almost everyone's taking a turn a day, which is really great for play by email. Andean Abyss though is ongoing. First off, I like it. It's very early on. Mm-hmm. I'm the government, and I just feel like I have so much. Like like I'm just feel like. Really, I don't know, #blessed. Like I'm not stressed for resources or anything. That I've got Patrick tried to do something or other, and it's like, you can't do that because I outnumber you, because I have things everywhere. It's very much I think we're like 7 cards in or something like that, so very early on. But playing the government obviously reminds me of playing the government in
Cuba Libre.
No. What did we play? Why can't I think of it? A Distant Plane.
Yeah.
Like, it just has those similarities, right? And so it's good. It's a classic. I don't know why I had no interest in playing this one before. I think maybe in my headspace it occupied the same spot as Cuba Libre, which I don't like. But and Cuba Libre and Andean Abyss are very similar, but I think Cuba Libre some reason doesn't connect, and so far Andean Abyss is. I don't know. We'll keep diving in.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts on coin in general that I've realized this year, but I'm going to hold them off until we talk about All Bridges Burning. Great.
When did you I see a big one here. When did you do this?
Yeah, so Mid-Age Market canceled our monthly game day this month because they had something else going on, and then they were like, you can do it the next week, and then they emailed us back and said, no, you can't do it that week either, so we ended up just canceling it. But that gave me the chance to play Twilight Imperium over at a friend's house. So we played a 6-player game. It moved right along. We played in 6.5 hours, and I won. So that's good. Not that I care, but yeah, I mean, we are all at, like, every player had at least 7 points, and we had, I think, 3 of us at 9 when I got the 10th point and won. But yeah, it was a fantastic game. I love that game so much. We did not play with the Mechs and the expansion. We just played the base TI4 game. But I mean, it's so good. I love it, and every time I play it, I'm like, all right, when can we do this again? So yeah, it was good.
Very good. I played, talking about classics and great games, Sekigahara, and I don't need to say much about this, but it was nice to go back to this one live on the table. We featured it, and that was great, but I think all of my plays when we did that during that month were online, and I think we knocked it out in an hour and a half, and that was great. It came down to, I got really aggressive with my daimyo at the end. I was playing gold, don't remember their names, but I kind of had to, and then I should have bid for turnover at the end to kind of slip him out of there and not get him captured, but he died on the very last kind of movement, and it was great. Sekigahara rocks, and it looks gorgeous on the table. We actually had 2 games of Sekigahara going at the game day, which was cool.
My daughter was just asking me about that game because she's been home for spring break this week, and we didn't end up actually even getting to play anything, but one thing she was telling me, she's like, what was that block game in Japan that we played that I like so much? And I told her, it's like, it's Sekigahara. She goes, we need to play that again. So
yeah, it felt good to pull it out. That's what she said. Yeah, it was great. Okay, I know that you are picky on your standard combat series, and There's some that are better than others.
Mm-hmm.
I think I am in the process of playing one of the better ones. I really like it so far.
Cool.
We have a new YouTube series, Coffee and Conflicts. You can join me on most Friday mornings at 9:30 Central, depending on the nap schedule. And I sit down, and it's no bells and whistles.
Yours or your daughter's?
Both. Both nap schedules. I just sit down, I put a camera at a map, I plug a mic in, and I just sit there and chat and just talk through it. I found that I really enjoy solo plays a lot more that way. Even if no one's in there, right? I'm just talking through the steps. And so I'm doing that with Iron Curtain. And I've kind of fast forwarded through the build-up. If you're not familiar, instead of just diving into the game, Iron Curtain has this build-up phase, which all the units start in their quote-unquote historical spot.
So is this like the post-World War II one?
Yeah,
okay.
And the reason why I say quote-unquote is because you can do exactly after fall of Germany in 1945, but then you can also play 63, 75, 82, 89 with NATO forces versus Warsaw Pact, and the force composition obviously changes as technology changes. The 45 scenario is going to be closest to your standard combat series game, and then Carl's done some really cool stuff with the series, but this whole build-up phase is almost like a free setup. So before the game starts, you move units as much as you want, and you just keep going until you roll a 1, and you can remove units. And as soon as you roll a 1, it goes to the other player, and they do it. And then when they roll a 1, then tensions increase. So there's a chance it could end early, but you almost, all right, everyone starts and then get your setup. You can't cross the Iron Curtain anywhere, and you can't, depending on the scenario, like if you do 45, you can't cross international boundaries. After 45, like NATO countries can, but Zocs aren't there. You can't engage in combat. And so I did that on the first stream. I am playing the rest of the build-up now, so next time we do the stream, it's not just more build-up because it's just movement. But, I've talked about it on the floor. I really like free setup games, and this scratches that exact same itch.
Yeah.
Because it's, all right, I'm going to do a little bit of movement, initial movement. Oh, I'm done. And then you get to respond. Or at least you hope you get to respond, because what if you roll a 1 right away? And so you're kind of countering your opponent's opening moves, but there is this kind of back and forth, like when is this thing going to go hot? It's kind of cool.
Yeah. It's funny. I've got that one in my sell pile, and I've got a big sell pile here, but I was just talking to my wife about that. She's like, oh, what are these? I said, those are ones I'm looking to sell, and she's looking at a couple of them. And she goes, yeah, what about that one? And I'm like, yeah, they're still mine, though. If I don't sell them, I can get them out and play them. So Iron Curtain might be one of those.
Here's the counter sheets are organized very well.
That's good.
I have no idea how I'm going to organize this after.
Yeah, that's kind of how Men of Iron is, too, because I was... When we reviewed it last year, I think I played that one. I got all of the rule books and player aids out and everything, but I didn't punch anything. So this is the first time I've played my copy on the table. And I started getting it out to punch it because Patrick was coming over. I'm like, oh gosh, this is a pain.
Well, this was easy to punch, but it's like there's and all the 1945 units are organized one way. All the units that only appear in 1962 have another indication. But a unit you use in 75, I think it is. I don't remember the exact years. Maybe it's 73. May be used again in 89. May not. May just be a little bit different in 89. Yeah. Might have different combat. So the same unit may show up 4 different times, and I don't know how to organize that. So...
Well, I mean, we're seeing that in the Ukraine war right now, where Russia's getting tanks out that were retired many years ago. So you run out, you use what you got.
That's Iron Curtain. Swing by next Friday if you want to see some more of that in action. I'm a noob.
So did you say that's on Twitch or on YouTube?
I do that on YouTube.
Okay.
Fridays, 9:30 Central AM. Again, very low key. Just chill, hang out, chat, play games. I'm new to SCS, and I don't expect every SCS game to be quite this good. I think it's cool that they took it in some new directions. I mean, how long has SCS been around? And so you take this basic combat system that can be a lot of fun, and then throw in some new bells and whistles, like there's an air superiority phase and all this stuff. Like it really ramps up SCS, but not to like whole new levels of complexity.
Nice.
All right. You got anything else you played?
Nope, that's it. Like I said, it was a pretty light month, but I've got a con this month, so I'm looking forward to playing more.
Well, Rich, you're not done playing games this month.
We have the game.
The game of games. All right, folks, it's the Wargame game time. Rich is our contestant, but you lucky sons of guns, can compete at home and just self-report your score, and we'll check it and give you a big star.
Feel free to tell me how badly you beat me.
Here's how it works. Rich gets a free guess. If he gets the game right away, he gets 10 points. I give him another clue. If he gets it after that clue, it's 9, and so on down the line until we start rhyming and really try to help
All right.
Rich out.
We ready?
Are you ready, sir?
I am.
First guess.
Fortress Europa.
No.
All right.
I like the balls there, but you just sounded so confident.
One of these days I'm going to get it.
This game was released in 2019.
2019. It's a new one then. Of course, that's like 4 years ago. That's not that new. What came out right before COVID? Brazen Chariots.
No.
No? All right.
Good guess. This game features art from Jordan Worley and Nicholas Escooby.
Nicholas Escooby. I think he does MMP stuff. So let's say, let's go with a GCACW game. What's the Chattanooga one? It's called, Clouds on the Mountain, or what's that called? I can't think of
Battle Above the Clouds.
Battle Above the Clouds, yeah.
That's the name. That's not the game.
Okay.
This game was published by Multiman Publishing.
All right, so I'm getting better. At least I can guess the clues now.
Yeah.
All right. 3 Days of Gettysburg.
No, that's a GMT game.
Oh, that's right. It is. Yeah. I was trying to think of. I was stuck on Civil War at that point. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm getting worse again.
This game utilizes a chit pull system.
Okay, MMP chit pull. A Victory Lost.
No.
All right.
This game is tactical scale.
Tactical chit pull. MMP. One of the line of battle games. What's To Take Washington?
No, I wish Line of Battle was chit pull.
Oh, it's not? Okay, I haven't played this
I
yet.
wish it was. I think it would help. This game was designed by Joe Chaikin.
What has he done?
He's got a new game coming out from GMT.
Yeah, I recognize the name, but I can't think of what series, so I'm just going to make a random guess. MMP Tactical Chit Pull Games. Man, I'm stuck. Give me another one. I might start rhyming, buddy.
well, I think you're at 6 so far. We're getting there. This game is set in Vietnam.
Oh, okay. Vietnam. See, I haven't played Front Toward Enemy, so I'm not sure if it's chit pull. Is it Front Toward Enemy?
It is Front Toward Enemy.
There we go.
I thought I'd throw you a little curveball.
Yeah.
Tonight,
all right.
knowing you hadn't played it. Yeah, Front Toward Enemy 2019 release, and a game that is just in my head and it's stuck there.
Yeah, and it keeps going on sale, and I keep thinking about buying it.
Yeah. I mean, if it's... I don't remember how many scenarios are in the box anymore.
Yeah.
But I think there's 8 maybe.
Yeah.
Anyways, doesn't matter. If you can get this for $30 or $40, I'm telling you folks, this is one of the best tactical games I've ever played.
If Miniature Market sold MMP, I probably would have bought it by now.
Sure. It's pretty sweet. Yeah. I really want to play it again.
It keeps going on sale.
I want to play this face to face, not over Vassal, and as soon as I fly in with my helicopters, I want Fortunate Son to just blast through the house.
Yeah.
I mean, I could do that when I solo, but the game actually solos like shit. Don't mess with solo in this one.
One player playing Fortunate Son, the other one playing Flight of the Valkyries.
Yeah, exactly. That's so sweet. All right. Well, nicely done, Rich. I think that was 7 clues.
I'll take it.
Very good. All right. It's time.
What time is it?
Game time.
The game. So there is one other game that we both played this month that we haven't talked about yet.
That's right. And before we... I just want to mark this moment. We've done this for... I think I started in 19. I don't remember anymore. I have yet to discuss... Well, hold on. That's wrong. I've discussed coin plenty of times. We've never ranked a coin game. This is a big moment. This is our first coin game going on the list.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, I think playing A Distant Plane couple months ago kind of got you back into the mood for it.
It really did. That was a very enjoyable experience, and also just being able to spitball and talk about coin and like help identify what do I like in a coin game, what do I want out of a coin game, and we'll get to that. But yeah, it did awaken something, and so I'm kind of going back and retouching all of them with a new mindset. But this month, we featured All Bridges Burning, Red Revolt, and White Guard in Finland 1917 to 1918 GMT games, released in 2020, designed by VPJ Arpanen. So this already gets bonus points because it's set in Finland. We also need to address that fact as to why this game is on this list.
Yeah. Yeah, if they ever do like a coin game of the 1956 Hungarian Revolution,
Rich will order 500 copies to speed that thing through. Okay, so let's set the setting, and I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on post-World War I Finland. VPJ was very kind to send me some articles. There are some books out there that are very hard to track down, even the English ones. It's just the Finnish Civil War is not widely written about, but the stuff is out there if you want to, and the playbook contains great historical background. And the premise is, after World War I, Finland starts to become its own country, and there's outside influences from Germany and from Russia. And basically, once Russia leaves, this power vacuum's created, and then you have opposing political forces trying to compete for control of Finland. Now, what's interesting is historically, my understanding is it's really a fight between the Reds and the Whites.
Yeah.
So on the Reds, you have the working class, obviously, with communist influence, I'm sure, and then the bourgeoisie or the Whites, they control the Senate, the upper class, the old power, the old Richie Rich, and they really fight for it. And so this game is set in that time period, but it introduces a third faction because although ultimately the Whites end up winning, VPJ makes an interesting case that it's really the moderates who win because it secures just a political survival for Finland as its own nation. So in All Bridges Burning, there are three factions present. The moderates, who are made up of both Reds and Whites, and really just want Finland to succeed as its own. And then you have the Reds, and then you have the Whites, and then you also have outside forces present in the form of Russians, and then Germany as well.
Yeah, so I picked up this game. I P500'd this one, so I got it when it first came out. And I actually got it at a time when my interest in coin in general was waning. But the thing that caught me about this one was that it is a 3-player game. And unless there's a newer one that I'm not thinking of, this is the only 3-player coin game. So obviously you can play 4-player games with a bot, but this is the only game that's made for 3 players. And it does model exactly what you said really well. You've got the Reds that ally with the Russians, but the Russians aren't going to stick around forever. You've got the Whites that ally with the Germans, and the Germans are a killing machine. And then you've got the Blues that just want everybody to calm down. And I find that I've played this game. This one is actually one that I've played on the table multiple times, and I find that most of the time I play this game, the Reds and the Whites go hard at each other, and the Blues just kind of slip into the victory without anybody really paying attention to them.
Yeah, I think I'll get to the moderates later. But what I'll also add is there's not only is it a 3-player coin game, it's also a coin game that has 2 kind of distinct periods where you have this build up.
Think about that. You're right.
And it's pretty important because it captures the whole time period, like pre-Civil War, and then once there's open conflict. And so about half your actions for the Reds in the Senate are off the table until the second propaganda card comes through, or if there's enough cells on the map, it can trigger early. And then you also, with those outside forces with the Russians and the Germans, it's an interesting balance of you want the help from the Germans, but you also want to get off the German teat.
Right.
And so, like, historically, they probably don't want to become a, vassalage of Germany or fall back into Russian control. I mean, they don't know what the future holds, obviously. But so you're balancing that in the game, and you're also kind of playing through these very two distinct periods where you eventually shift into outright, like march and attack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And during that preparation period, you are definitely making war preparations. It's not like you're doing actions that don't have to do with the war. You're building railroad tracks and gathering arms and things like that, and building defensive structures that are going to allow you to do better for the war that is coming.
Yeah, and so there's even an action called preparation, right? And so with this this three-headed giant kind of thing going on, it's really interesting. Where if you're not familiar with Coin, most titles, when you flip over a card, it tells you that the order of activation, and generally the first faction will act, and then the second one, and you can pass, but that'll be it. Usually 2 factions will act, and then the other 2 factions just kind of wait until the next card comes up, and you kind of cycle through. In All Bridges Burning, all 3 factions can act, and in other coin games, typically you can take a full command. I'm going to do the rally action, and if I place my disc on this spot, it's going to also let me do these special actions, which can range all over the place, right? You get more money, influence, attack, do airstrikes. It all depends on what game you're playing. What's interesting here is that particular action in All Bridges Burning is the only action that makes you go inactive. So in other coins, you take an action, you go inactive, you're kind of sitting out a card. Here, just because you take a limited op or you take an event, actually if you do limited op or event, you're not inactive on the next card. So you are continuously, every card, taking actions as long as you're not passing or as long as you're not doing the full ops. So you really want to be choosy with your full ops. It's sometimes you really don't want to go inactive for a whole card when your 2 opponents are going every turn.
Right. And the order of the next turn is based on how big of an action you took.
Mm-hmm.
So you can take smaller actions to try to increase your chance of going earlier on the next card.
I don't know. I don't want to do a disservice to our listeners, and I don't want to assume like Coin has been a part of historical gaming now for so many years that it's in our blood. But I don't want to have a listener come in and be like, "What the hell is Coin?" And so generally, what the factions are trying to do are control spaces. So
Coin stands for counterinsurgency.
Yeah, very good. That's a great point.
Yeah.
And the first 4 or 5 games in the series really focus on counterinsurgency. Yeah. And generally, you're trying to move into a location and take control by outnumbering your opponents. You influence opposition and support by maybe that's something related with the press, or pick an action from a game that increases opposition. You will strike back against guerrilla forces, or you might place forts or casinos or these different things that are going to kind of enhance your actions in those spots. And so it's an area, sometimes it's an area majority game, but it's also an area influence game depending on which lens you're looking at the game from. Yep. And you're trying to either bring up a rebellion and increase the opposition all across the map, or you're trying to crush that opposition.
Yeah. Combat is typically very simple. I mean, some games are a little more complicated than others, but for the most part, it's strictly just a matter of numbers. I'm going to do 1 hit for every 2 of my guys or whatever. So combat it's an important part of the game for removing your opponent's pieces from the map, but it's not the most important part of the game usually. You're doing combat in order to gain control of a space usually.
I know that you have played way more Coin than me. Is there anything or any identifying factor of the series, like what is a Coin game, that you feel like I'm missing out?
Yeah, I think the most important thing when I think of a Coin game is going to be the cards and the activations. Mm-hmm. And most Coin games are 4-player games, and they've got a specific way that the activation works. As far as I can think of right now, the only two that are not 4-player are Colonial Twilight, which is 2-player, and All Bridges Burning, which is 3-player. And in both of those games, they had to actually sort of redesign their activation chart. And in both of them, I think they did a great job. I think that's what makes those games unique and interesting. But that's the most interesting thing. All coin games are going to be a little bit of asymmetrical.
Very.
Some more than others, but different. Every faction is going to have a slightly different list of things that they can do. Although there's going to be a lot of overlaps, and then every coin game to some degree or another is going to have basically your basic actions and then your special actions that you can do in certain circumstances on top of your basic actions, but it usually costs you in some way. It costs you more activation points, which is not really an accurate way to do it, but the more you spend on this activation, the less likely you're going to be able to do something later.
Yeah, and playing into that asymmetric nature of the game, which every faction is different. Every faction has their own victory conditions.
Right.
And so to bring it back to All Bridges Burning, which is, twists this activation system, you're still doing events. You're still doing limited commands between one action in one spot, or you're doing these full-blown commands, which I've already talked about. You're all doing that to obviously further your victory conditions. And so in All Bridges Burning, the Reds want opposition to be as high as possible. So they don't necessarily need to control a spot. They just want opposition in populated areas. And they also need to make sure that their reliance on the Russians is not above 5 is what the number is. Yeah. But basically they're getting out there and maybe they're terrorizing, maybe they're not. A lot of games you can do some kind of terror action to build opposition or increase support, but they're out there influencing the regions, and that's how they win.
Yeah. One other thing that's interesting, and I think it's unique to this game, at the end of the game, when you get to the final tiebreaker, everyone can lose. Either Russia or Germany can win.
Yep.
I think this is the only coin game that can have everyone lose.
And that's in that Russian team, which is Russian vassalage.
Yeah.
And so there's also this polarization track. So as you do things that harm another faction, and the moderates are always trying to keep polarization down, generally, I shouldn't say always. And so specifically, Reds need opposition plus their admins, which are their big wooden discs, above 12, and then the Russian vassalage plus the polarization in the country less than or equal to 5. So they want to not rely on Russia, and they want there to not be so much strife in the country. Senate is similar. They care about German vassalage and polarization being low, but they want to control at least 4 town population. So the biggest town is Helsinki. That's 2 population. So that's they strive there. It can be hard to do, but they want to control the major population centers. And the moderates want resources, and they want to resolve different issues in the game, which can be things like land reforms, 8-hour workdays, those type of things. And then, like Rich said, Russia or Germany can win if your victory margin is not positive. And so you subtract the polarization and the vassalage, and it's real tempting as the Senate forces to have high German vassalage, because the Germans just run across the map and kill everyone. I mean, unless you roll a 6 in combat, they're probably going to win and kill some people. But they're a force as long as your reliance on them is high. So that's kind of what each faction is striving for. The moderates have some weird things where they like place personalities and they pick up news counters and they run around the map and cash those in. I'm not wild about playing the moderates. I really like both the Reds and the Senate.
Yeah, the Reds and the Whites both have a more traditional war game feel to them because they're going to be involved in combat. Blues are never going to be involved in combat unless they're just getting killed.
So you just brought up a really good point. And I want to say right here off the bat, like, I like this game a lot. This does not feel like, and this kind of stems from our conversation up at the lake, this does not feel like counterinsurgency to me.
No, it doesn't.
And that's fine. That's not a bad thing. But obviously this is a game that, and I think when you read VPJ's design notes, I think he even talks about this to a certain extent. Like, Coin came along, and I think it gave him the answer of how to do this game. And so obviously this is a game rooted in Coin, but it's in Coin the series, but it's not a game rooted in counterinsurgency.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I do remember when this game came out, that was a big complaint about it, it's not a counterinsurgency game. But it does follow the Coin system, and it's still a game for what it is, you know?
If you're playing the reds or whites, I think especially once you get into phase 2, obviously, it has a very strong war game feel, because you're going to be trying to hold on to the things you've set up, and then you're going to try to do everything you can to counter the other person. And that at that point in the game, that might be marching and attacking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and there will be a lot of combat, particularly between the reds and the whites. Usually, sometimes the reds and the whites will kind of punch the blues just to keep them down, but mostly it's going to be the reds and the whites going against each other.
This is a smaller Coin game, just in terms of like table presence, and especially in where things get focused. So maybe it's I'm guessing maybe it's around the size of Cuba Libre, maybe a little bit bigger, but you're really kind of focused in the town centers. Not to say you might have some action going on in Hame or something like that,
because that's where the people are.
That's where exactly.
Yeah,
yep.
And all the influence is based on population, so there's not really a need to go fight for woods where there's no people.
Right. Now, the Russians can build opposition out in the woods and stuff, but so you really do kind of focus in 4 of the 5 cities. In all my games, not much. I guess I shouldn't say not much, but way more things happen in the 4 southern cities than Vasa, which is up in the northwest. It doesn't feel like the map isn't too claustrophobic to me. I think there's a lot of like, you can kind of do your thing, but then, interact with who you're trying to oppose. As a 3-player game, it's important to, not have 2 factions want to team up too much, because that would feel really bad. And there's no, like, the moderates aren't necessarily encouraged to work with the Senate. At certain points in the game, like when the Germans come on, it might be like, oh shit, we really need to do something about the Senate. Because their German buddies are running around the whole country.
Are those the 3 cubes that you put in the political display? Because that's where the moderates can help one faction over the other.
Yeah, so they can decrease opposition, and they can also rally maybe easier than the other 2. It just depends on the board state, but they could like rally in to remove control and stuff. But yeah, they have a choice to make when they place cubes in the political display and a issue passes. If there's a tie, they assign who it goes to. They're also in charge of placing the cubes, so they could dump 3 red cubes in there over the course of a propaganda card, and they're basically saying like, this is a red issue, and that means it's going to help the reds and make things more costly for the Senate. But then the next time around, they might be like, all right, we punished the Senate, now the reds are kind of building up, let's pass something in favor of the whites. Yeah.
So one issue that I've always had with this game, it's been confusing for me. So this is volume 10, I think, of the Coin series. And so there's a long line leading up to this. But this, I think, is the first game, and maybe the only game, where being active actually helps you.
Yes.
So in all the other games, if a cylinder is inactive, you have to activate it first. So what this amounts to is that outside of some special abilities and cards, it usually takes 2 turns to take a cylinder off the board. You have to activate it and then kill it. So it's always been a negative to be active in the Coin series. And then in this one, for the first time ever, it's been a positive to be active. And that confused the hell out of me when I first got this game and was trying to figure it out. So that's always been something that's kind of annoyed me about this game, because I can't really figure out why he didn't just swap his rule to make it match the rest of the series.
Well, I'll have to ask him, because we're doing an interview with him on the 27th. I believe is when we set that date. But I think that's interesting too. And he even reached out and commented that, it's a bit of a shock to experienced Coin players that you may not always want to be on the side you used to being on.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting.
Yeah. So I said earlier I had some thoughts on coin in general, and when I first got Falling Sky, it was when I first actually started getting back into wargaming, other than the games that I played when I was a kid, and I loved it. I still love playing it. I played it a lot. I played it a decent amount of times in person, and that's kind of when I found Vassal. So Falling Sky was probably my first ever Vassal game. I found people to play with online. We played a lot of play by email, and coin itself lends itself well to play by email because the actions are all very discreet. There's not a whole lot of things that another player can do on my turn, but the turns are short, so it's not like OCS where I'm locking you out or anything like that. But for the most part, I play a quick turn, and then I know who's next, and I pass it on to the next person. That game lends itself well to play by email. But I found that over the course of playing a lot of coin games, play by email, I'm really losing interest in that format. And I think that when I started losing interest in coin in general, it was around the time Gandhi came out. That was like the first coin game that I bought and played and thought immediately, this isn't for me. It's not that good. And then this one came out after that, and I got it mostly because it was 3-player. I played it on the table like the day after I got it. I had friends over and we played it and we all enjoyed it. But more and more when I play these coin games, and really it's not just coin games, it's a lot of games, but playing by email takes off so much of the fun of playing the game, because coin games are negotiation political games, especially with multiplayer and, multi-directional alliances. So when we played A Distant Plane in person, it was so much better than if we had tried to play that by email. And I've had so many coin games die on the vine through email, and I think it's just because people lose interest without having that face-to-face interaction.
Yeah, I think that's well said, and I agree with you. I've been a long proponent of, I'm not a play-by-email person. I've never liked it, but what I did this last month is try to use Discord to try to enhance it, and our All Bridges Burning game has been snappy. It's had conversations, not a ton. It's had GIFs, and it's been as closer to being face-to-face than playing by email.
Yeah.
Now, as a counterpoint, other games haven't been there. And obviously I'm enjoying the All Bridges Burning game more because everyone's more engaged. And I think I agree with you. And that's not necessarily a comment on coin. It's just more of a comment on playing play by email.
Yeah.
But everyone does seem to want to play coin by play by email because it's easy to do.
Yep.
It doesn't take you all night to do your turn by yourself without interacting with people. And even on the first propaganda for All Bridges Burning, Patrick and I just popped on and shot the shit and went through the propaganda just to do it. And it was great. And I agree with you. These games shine with player interaction. And some of my early coin plays were new historical gamers, myself included, and just kind of going through the motions. And that's not too different than playing by email, because then you're not negotiating. You're not identifying that so-and-so's running away with game. Let's react to what they're doing. It's, I'm going to do this because that's like the only thing I can do, and there's not much interaction. So I don't know if that's, I don't really think that's a coin issue per se, but it does seem to happen with coin.
Yeah. If anything, I would say it's not necessarily a coin issue. It's just that for some reason, coin comes up as a game that plays well over email. And the mechanics do, but coin is, like most games, it's just so much better in person. And obviously we're also coming off a time for the last 3 years we haven't been able to play games in person, so we've been playing more by email, and maybe it's just a reaction to me wanting to play more games in person in general.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do, if we're on this broad topic of coin, not every coin does it for me. I think coins are very good when they are counterinsurgency. When I think it's okay to shift up the standards, right? I've said I like All Bridges Burning a lot. It very much shakes up what coin is. And maybe it's because it feels different enough than, I'll say Andy and Abyss, but Fire in the Lake is what I've played the most. And Liberty or Death. Those are the two I've played the most out of coin.
Yeah, I've called
Whereas
my coin...
Liberty or Death has a lot more. It breaks it. It doesn't break it. Changes coin, but it changes it in ways I don't enjoy. And then there's a whole laundry list of stuff, and I wanted to revisit Liberty or Death to try to. Am I wrong? But I think it breaks some things, and maybe it tries to stay too close to Andean Abyss or Cuba Libre or in any of the games that predated it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I can articulate why some coins work for me and why some don't. But it's never been, and it's not a series that is a blind buy for me. But playing these games and having such a good reaction to All Bridges Burning certainly has rekindled an interest in this series for me.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I've got my coin collection down to 5 games now. If I were going to add another one, I would add A Distant Plain because I don't own that one, and that's definitely a worthy game. But those 5, so I've got Colonial Twilight, the only 2-player, All Bridges Burning, the only 3-player, and then I've got Falling Sky, Liberty or Death, and there's one other one. I can't think of it offhand. But, I mean, those are... Oh, Fire in the Lake, obviously. I mean, those are... To me, that's everything I need out of coin. And honestly, when I see new coin games coming out, I barely look at them anymore. But I still enjoy the games I have. And anytime anyone wants to play one of those on the table, I'm all for it.
Yeah, that's what's interesting. Like there is so much discussion about coin, and I don't know if criticism is the right word, but it is a polarizing topic. But man, it gets a ton of play because, yeah, maybe you don't like it, but it plays 4 people, and it plays 4 people really well, and some of them are super interesting topics. Excuse me.
And the system is close enough that even though every game is a little different, if you know the coin system, you can sit down and play.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. I do want to address the 2-player thing because this is important for All Bridges Burning. I'm going to give this another go. I think my preferred way to play this is 2-player with the 2-player variants. Not a bot.
Interesting. Okay.
Not the cards. I know it comes with the cards. Not the 2-player variant, which we streamed on Twitch and the replays are available on YouTube, changes how the moderates are played. And it changes some of their commands. So they're slightly different. It's the basic same commands are just changed to balance things out. But control of the moderates passes back and forth. So
cool.
The Reds player will control them, then the Senate will control them. The interesting thing is you cannot just willy-nilly bend them to your will, because if the moderates do too well, that's subtracted from your victory margin. Mm-hmm. And so you either better win by auto victory, which is harder to do because you're factoring in the kind of moderate new scoring, or you better not just abuse them, because as Patrick and I found out, even if I had done my final command the right way to get 1 victory point, we used the moderates and abused them so much that we were both negative and Germany won. It's very good that way. There's some things I would change. Going into a propaganda round, having control of the moderates on your side is maybe a little too strong, because then you control them for political issues. You also control them for agitation. Mm-hmm. I would maybe make that random, or set whoever gets it first, then the next person gets it second and third, and then the first person gets it on the fourth, yada yada. It might be my preferred way to play, unless I'm playing with someone who really wants to play the moderates, because I mean, I'm having a fine time with the moderates, but I like the reds and whites a lot more.
Cool. Yeah, I've never played this one 2-player. I've always played it with 3 or solitaire. So when I play solitaire, sometimes I look at the bots, but usually I just play 3-handed.
Yeah. And that's what I did when I was playing solitaire on the table. I did three-handed, which I liked it. I liked it a lot, three-handed.
Yeah.
But that two-player variant, which I think was released last fall, I think it was sometime last year, is available on GMT's website. And I haven't played Colonial Twilight, but like I have this, and I'm gearing up to play Colonial Twilight.
Cool. I like CT. Like I said, it's one of my 5 that I definitely want to keep.
So if you want a 2-player coin game and you like All Bridges Burning, the 2-player variant to me is almost better.
Okay.
Than the 3-player game. Again, unless you have someone that's like really wanting to play the moderates and is going to play them well, although they have to be balanced somewhat. Yeah. But
I'll keep that in mind because it's obviously always easier to find one person than 2, and I'll have to check out that 2-player variant.
And plus, it sings. I think Patrick and I played an hour and a half each night, and we're finished. So, a 3-hour coin game with lots of moaning and groaning because I want to do this, I want to do this, and lots of curses, but great curses.
Cool.
Okay. Anything else that you want to add?
The only other thing I wanted to talk about was themes. So obviously you are super interested in the Finland theme. I'm not particularly interested in it. I mean, it's not a theme that turns me off, but it's not one that I'm drawn to either. So how much of a bonus did you give how much you like this game on theme rather than the game itself?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's probably picking up some points just for being Finland, but that's being supported by the fact that the situation is interesting with these outside influences. And, the Reds, they're tied to Russia, but they don't want to be tied to Russia. And no one wants to be under German control either. So I think the historical situation is doing more lifting than it just being Finland. But, that's valid of a lot of coin games, though, right? Like, Fire in the Lake is brilliant, but it's also getting boosted up because it's Vietnam. A Distant Plain, what a tough, especially at the time when it came out, like, that's got to be a hard topic to cover and decide I'm going to put a game out on. But it's also interesting because there's not much else on that topic. You talk about not paying too much attention to the new coin releases. I do generally like Latin American history quite a bit. And when I got my degree, a lot of my undergrad courses were focused on Latin American history. And so the new one is really interesting, more so than British Way, even though they're both 4-packs of small games because of the topic. So when someone asks me, which coin should I play? I never point them to Cuba Libre because I don't like Cuba Libre, and a lot of people do because, it's the beginner one. No, the best coin game, generally speaking, is going to be the one that interests you the most historically. I'm not going to suggest you suffer through a game. If you're like, I could care 2 shits about Finland, I'm not going to have you sit through All Bridges Burning if you don't care. Same thing with Cuba Libre.
And honestly, anytime anyone asks me about any war game, hey, I'm new to wargaming, but it sounds fun. What should I pick up? The first thing I said, 2 questions. What kind of scale do you want? Which I have to, explain to them what that even means. But then what historical period are you interested in?
Yeah, and I think just with like the flavor text and like seeing the cards, it comes through in coin. It's not like whoa, I'm living in 1917 Finland, but the flavor's there.
And it is, because like my wife, she's as big a history nut as I am, but in a different way. But like if I play a coin game with her, it takes 3 times as long because she reads every single card.
Nice.
She's like, oh, did you know about this? And that's fascinating. And
yeah, so to be fair, the topic helps here. But the topic really drove interest. And then, having an interest game, that's going to increase your enjoyment if you want to be playing that game. So I think it just helped initially and then was just supported by the fact that it's a very good game.
Cool.
All right. Folks, we have a list ranking every war game ever made from best to worst.
From the Pacific War to Zeppelin Raider.
Whoa.
Oh, did I get something wrong there?
Rich, I know it's been a while, but come on now. Rich, how many games have we ranked so far?
66. Wow.
Yep. How many more games do we have to go?
Well, we got a choice. We can either do 66 more, or we can play every game that either of us owns.
Not gonna happen. Although we're about to go up to 67, and here's how it works, folks. We have this list, and we're gonna find a spot. Well, we're not gonna find a spot. We are the sculptors.
This game knows where it lives. We're just trying to find its address.
We're gonna blindfold each other. We're gonna crank up the clay wheel, and we're gonna put our hands out there, and the list will take on a new shape, and it will take on the shape of a bridge. That's all the bridges that are burning. Okay, I have some ideas. I also see some errors in our list.
Oh yeah, that happens from time to time. That's not our fault though. I think the list rearranges itself.
Men of Iron is too low.
Yeah, the more I play that's true.
I just played Sekigahara.
I think we're both looking at the same area of the list though.
All right, where are you starting? Because I could.
So I'm actually starting at a floor, if we want to call it like that. Like games that are definitely worse than this one. So. Okay. Königsberg 45, that's definitely worse than this one. Captain's Sea is not as good as this one. And then you've got a couple solo games, Pavlov's House, NATO Air Commander, which I like, but I think we're getting close there, but I think it's still going to be above NATO Air Commander. So that puts us into like Labyrinth and Washington's Crossing, and now it feels like maybe we're in the right area.
I'm going to jump you up a little bit.
Okay. I figured you would, and this is kind of where I was going with the theme thing too, which is not, I mean, that's not something to argue about, but it's just a fact that you're going to give it points for being a Finland game, just like I would give it points for being a Hungarian game. That's just the way it works.
Yeah, right. Brotherhood and Unity is a 3-player game.
Yes.
I like this more than Brotherhood and Unity.
See?
I think the decision points are...
I like Brotherhood and Unity better.
They're actually pretty equal.
Yeah.
It's really hard to take the 2-player game out of my head. I think the 2-player game is one, from what I have played of Coin, if we're going to talk about games that take Coin as a root and change it up somehow, from what I have played so far, this does it best. I'm not saying it's the best Coin, but it is the best to emerge after those first 4 or 5 Coin games, in my opinion so far. Brotherhood and Unity.
I had more fun playing Brotherhood and Unity than I did All Bridges Burning. I think that, well, and part of it is, so Brotherhood and Unity is definitely closer to a war game. You know, you got counters instead of cylinders and discs. Part of it is theme. I'm more interested in the Bosnian War than I am in the Finnish Civil War. Part of it, I really liked the Brotherhood and Unity, the public relations track. I thought that was a really cool way to limit actions. But Coin also has its own way of limited actions. That's how we talked about the action selection. So they both do the same thing mechanically, but in a different way. So they're, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
They have a mechanic to limit what you can do.
At first glance, this was an easy call for me. I don't know if it's easy now.
Mm-hmm.
Just real quick, just as a check, a couple spots above is Men of Iron.
Mm-hmm. I like Men of Iron better.
Okay, and that's kind of where I was thinking too.
Yeah, I mean, the more I look at this, I would put this between Brotherhood and Unity and Reds. That's where I like it. If you went above Reds, if you went above Brotherhood and Unity, I'm not going to throw a fit or anything because, like I said, theme does matter. But that's where I would put it.
This is probably the most we've disagreed on a game.
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's theme. I mean, and that's okay. It's Finland.
It is, but I'm telling you, that's carrying initial interest.
Okay.
I mean, really, it is. Like, the Finland thing is tongue-in-cheek, right? Like, the Second World War, Hakapale got no favor for being a Finland game. If anything, it gets less points because of the bastardization. Yeah. Calling itself a Finland game. Look, I'm not going to argue for it either. Above Brotherhood and Unity. Brotherhood and Unity, you're right, it does have some cool mechanics. The other day I was like thinking about like what makes Brotherhood and Unity so great. I was actually like in my headspace. but there are more things than just kind of basic combat.
So actually, and here's one thing that I would actually give the lean to All Bridges Burning over Brotherhood and Unity. Brotherhood and Unity, every faction has the same deck that you're going to go through every time you play it.
That's right.
All Bridges Burning, you have a shared deck, which the events are going to be vastly different each game. I think if you played Brotherhood and Unity 10 times and you played ABB 10 times, ABB would be much more different the 10th time.
I agree, and ABB got way more play from me over the last year than Brotherhood and Unity.
Yeah.
I mean, Brotherhood and Unity we had a great time with. We did it at a HistoriKC Fest. We played it in an evening twice, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It just clips along, but also you kind of see it do its thing, and then I'm good with it on the shelf for a while.
Yeah.
I'm going to go slightly above, but it's close.
All right.
It's really close.
Yeah, I think these two are not even similar games, but definitely similar quality.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I do agree this is not better than, just as I'm typing in here, it's not better than Men of Iron, but I also think Men of Iron's too low. Well, to circle back to that, fix that blunder. Folks, I really recommend the 2-player variant. When Patrick and I finished our game of All Bridges Burning, we did like a debrief and like, what do we like and what do we dislike? And there wasn't a lot to dislike. We really wanted to just turn around and start the 2-player game again. And it was that good. I mean, have your expectations in place. So, like, don't go in expecting a counterinsurgency game here. Go in expecting a game that's taken the coin system and adapted it to a historical topic we don't see a lot and done some really cool things with, you know, one of the most prolific game systems of the last dozen years.
Yeah, agreed.
There you go, folks. 37. We're up to 67 games.
Nice.
And you might say, wait a second, 37 sounds low. We still have a very top-heavy list.
Oh, yeah.
Like you said, NATO Air Commander. That's a game we love.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you know, almost 10 spots below. All right, sweet. So normally this is the point in the show where we plug our Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/historytable, support our show, help us do cool new things. And we normally say you get to vote on our game of the month, but we had to push back this week's episode. And so we announced to our patrons, we're going to get the voting out of the way. And so Rich and I picked our games. We had a bunch of other games. I thought for sure I was going to win this month, Rich.
Yeah,
I cheated. I did 2 games. I did
know
Wilderness War and Bayonets and Tomahawks, and it wasn't enough.
And what'd you call it? You called it something. You had a name for your pair of games.
Oh, I think I abbreviated French Indian War 2-pack.
Yeah, and I said, is that a thing, or are you making that up?
Oh, it's a thing now.
Yeah.
But it was not enough to overcome your pick. What'd you pick, Rich? And that's our game.
Salerno 43.
Awesome.
New Simage game, which also has some new interesting mechanics based on an older system. This one has some landing mechanics, which I think are pretty cool. I've looked at the rules. I started playing it a little bit last month just to kind of get a feel for it. And yeah, it looks really interesting. I haven't done a deep dive on a new Simage game in a while. So I would love to play that.
You know, what I'll say, and you know, we never assign homework or anything like that before, is just take a look at the Normandy 44 rules.
Yeah.
Because Salerno 43 is, in my mind, the closest to Normandy 44.
Okay.
It's got the landing rules. It has the combat limitations. Very good. But it feels like a mini Normandy 44. So just take a look at those, because I think that's probably going to be our first measuring stick next month.
Yeah, on that, I forgot that one is actually on the list. So
it is.
That was an early one. I'll have to go back and listen to episode 5.
Yeah. Well, I was like, dang, you remember that episode 5, and then I forgot that like we list the episode. So it's like right there. It was impressive. So, but we'll of course do that in May. We'll have our vote announced. We'll stump for our game so we can right this error and get Wilderness War on the list. Oh, you know what? I was going to talk about our Pacific War game, which is back and happening again. I was just going to report that like Rex got the historical result. I think he sunk 4 battleships, which is what happened, and then in all kinds of planes. But anyways, played Pacific War. Back
Cool.
to where we were.
So you guys are just past Pearl Harbor?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. Okay, we have a listener question from our good buddy Art. We're back to marry, boink, or kill. And this time, it's a pretty good topic. Art has given us 3 scales. Rich, would you rather...
This is
or
tough.
it's not would you rather. Pick one to marry, boink, and kill. Tactical, strategic, or operational.
That is tough, man.
Oh, this is easy for me. Easy.
All right, how do you want to do it? Do you want me to give them all 3 of mine, or what do you want to do?
Well, how do you want to do it?
Let's each talk about who we're to marry.
Okay. I'm going to marry strategic. And because
Interesting.
strategic to me is the sandbox, right?
Yeah.
And you might say, like, a sandbox, like, that's for fun, so why aren't you boinking strategic? Like, marriage is a long-term commitment. Strategic games are long-term commitments for me. The reason why the U.S. Civil War is so great is because I can play that for the rest of my life, and I'm playing around in a sandbox. It's why Totaler Krieg is a great game, and you know, just talk about your favorite strategic game. I don't care. It's the fact that you can go play in this sandbox, and you have this long-term commitment, at least the potential for long-term commitment. So easy, marry strategic.
Well, it's not easy for me, but I'm going to marry operational.
Okay.
I think of my operational. Because when I think of operational, I think of games like OCS and GCACW, and those are lifestyle games. Those are the big but manageable games that I could just play forever.
Okay, let's talk about Boink then, because
All
my
right.
Boink is operational. And here's why, because I agree with everything you said, but my long-term commitment is U.S. Civil War. That's my strategic game. That's my hubba hubba ding ding baby, you got everything. Operational, I'm good with boinking because I can go boink OCS, and there's a dozen games that I can boink around between. And if I go to GCACW, there's half a dozen games there. And operational, you have the GMT operational series that no one talks about. But that's got like Silver Bayonet and stuff. Operational is great, but like operational is a buffet. And so I'm boinking operational.
Interesting. See, I'm going to boink tactical. Tactical, get in, get out. Don't have to worry about supply rules. You just, surround them and go at it. That means I want to kill strategic. I hate to say it. I don't want to kill strategic, but I have to. Just like you don't want to kill tactical, but you have to.
No, I do. That was the first one. Like when I thought about this, I was like, oh, I'm killing tactical. That's easy peasy.
Oh, yeah. I can't kill tactical. Men of Iron, ASL, front toward enemy.
My problem is when I think tactical.
Line of battle?
I don't. Line of battle is in the Venn diagram between operational and tactical.
Is it? Okay.
In my eyes,
Yeah.
in my justification.
Obviously,
line
it's
of
a
battle's
tough call,
not
but
dying.
Yeah, really just ranking the 3. Strategic would be... It's not even to say it's the least interesting to me. I think for me, strategic is probably the hardest to properly model. And that's probably why I would rank it in the kill segment if I had to. I think
that's
tactical
like a logical
and operational,
reason to do it.
there's probably more good games that are, I think, better modeled than they are in the strategic area.
Fair enough. That's all sound and logical, but I'm following my heart.
There you go.
All right, folks, we only have a little bit of war game talk left before we really get off the table. But we were... GMT was kind enough to provide their update on time or timely to us this month. It was our fault, GMT.
Yeah.
Do not think you need to change your delivery time. But we had a GMT update, and I really want to talk about this one because we've both bounced around it, and it's this: do we care about new coin announcements anymore? And for the last 4 years, I haven't. I got to tell you, the Guerrilla Generation sounds really interesting to me. So if you don't know, folks, this is a 4-pack of coin games. It's on P500 now, already up to 430 games, which is nuts. 4 coin games in one. It's all Cold War insurgencies in Latin America. They are a combination of 2-player games, so there's 4 2-player games packed in one box, or you can play a 4-player campaign game combining the games. You might say, wow, that sounds like the British way, and it sure does, but the British way has some very interesting topics in it, don't get me wrong, but this one speaks to me a little bit more, and that combination of the campaign game, being able to do a 4-player game, pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks interesting, and the fact that they're smaller 2-player means that it's likely that someone will bring them to a game day at some point, and I'll definitely play them. Yeah,
I know I want to play British Way to check it out, but I don't need both. I'm sure of that. And topic of...
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the topic of Guerrilla Generation wins out.
Yeah. There's also an 18XX game.
No, that's not.
I know.
That's what I thought at first. I did.
1848, The Springtime of Nations, 2-player card-driven game.
In the vein of Twilight
Struggle
and
yeah.
1989. So, will I play it if someone has it? Absolutely. I would like to try this. What a cool time period, something new. I want to play it, no doubt about it. Just not for me.
Yep. Pretty much the same way. And Men of Iron Tripack second printing. Yes. So there you go.
Folks, we've talked about how good a value something is like Roads to Gettysburg 2 is. This is sad. The orders to date on Men of Iron Tripack is 70. Now,
maybe everybody already has it.
I understand. Not when did P500 this. I did not P500 the first Tripack. It took Jason from AAC to shine light on this wonderful, amazing system. And then it's great. It's fantastic. Yeah. It is bang for your buck. It is $60 for 3 games in 1. We're talking like Roads to Gettysburg value here, but for a third the price.
Yeah. And each game has, 6 to 8 different battles. They all have their own maps and everything. And so, yeah, there's a lot in there for $59.
It's great. I highly recommend it. Yeah, there's probably 18 battles in here or something like that. You should check it out. If you're like, Men of Iron, to me, Men of Iron, I chalked up as Musket and Pike, and Musket and Pike is one of my least favorite topics. At least the games I've played in that time period, I did not enjoy, and so I never really want to go back to Musket and Pike. I heard the Musket and Pike 2-pack is outstanding. Still not interested. Those folks, don't listen to them about Musket and Pike. Listen to us about Men of Iron if you've never been interested. Now is the time.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't know that you didn't like Musket and Pike. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's just more of what I've played. But even just the time period is just kind of, that's fine.
I was at Miniature Market earlier this week, and I was looking at the 2-pack for Musket and Pike and thinking about it.
Nice.
But I knew I had Men of Iron on my table already, and I knew that I have not even played a third of the games for Men of Iron. I'm like, I'll just keep playing that.
Yeah. Well, you're not going wrong with it. So, okay, very good. We have some things on the way, though. Border Reavers is getting closer and closer. That's awesome. North Africa 41 is at the printer as well. Plantagenet is at the printer. We're going to have time again, we're going to have another mega box.
I know. I'm looking forward to Plantagenet.
I have played so much Nevsky. It has
I know.
Been amazing.
I have not played this month just because this has been one of those months. But, yes, I need to get back and rally the troops in Nevsky. It's so good.
Man, I didn't get Inferno. I think we talked about that. Playing this much Nevsky, and like for me, fortunately, I have Almoravid up there, so I can get to Almoravid and not have to go get Inferno.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just I even reached out and sent a message to Volko, and I just wanted, like I said, thank you so much for putting Rally the Troops. It's just rekindling all of my interest in Nevsky from that initial go at it, and I'm having a blast.
Oh yeah.
Because it's really cool that it's out there on this free website that you can just go play Nevsky, and it's a trap. It is, because it does so much automation that it's kind of easy to just let the things click through. I'm glad I played before. I wouldn't want to learn on Rally the Troops, but it's a great implementation.
Yeah. I know when Nevsky was announced that it was coming to Rally the Troops at least 6 months before it came out. They teased it, but I haven't seen any other teases for Rally the Troops. Do you know if there's anything else coming out that...
Yeah.
What is?
Red Flag Over Paris is somewhere in the pipeline.
All right, cool. Yeah, that'll be a good
Other than that, I don't know.
That'd be a great one in that format.
Yep. Exactly. All right. That's it for the war game talk. Other than that, I mentioned we started like a friend's game night. None of those are like we did play Scout, which is like a shedding game. If you've ever played Presidents and Assholes, it's kind of a twist on that. The cool thing with Scout is once you pick up your hand, you can't reorder your cards, and you're just trying to like get rid of your cards first. It was pretty good. Outside of that, I've just doing a bunch of RPG stuff, but I want to talk about some books here that we have listed.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about RPGs too, but yeah, let's talk
books.
Well,
let's do our RPGs after the books. Okay. So, have you done any John Le Carre stuff?
No, he does spy novels, right?
Yeah, okay. He did Spy That Came In From the Cold, and then Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. And
I have read that one. Okay.
Oh, okay. And I haven't seen the either Spy That Came In From the Cold or the recent Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. But I was talking to our buddy Art about where to start with this stuff, and he's like, you should just start at the beginning. And so Libby had Call for the Dead, and I don't know when they were written, but I'm finding it very interesting and well written. I was worried, like, is this going to be really dry? It's not. I'm enjoying it. So Call for the Dead, John Le Carre.
Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, it was dry in a way, but it was interesting. It's really hard to describe. Like, it wasn't like super action packed.
Sure.
But yeah, it was good.
Good. All right. So you're still working through Area X?
No, I finished it.
Oh, okay. All right. So do not spoil the future books for me.
Unfortunately. I don't want to spoil anything. I will just say that it peaked in the first book.
Damn it.
And just went downhill from there. That's all I'll say. I don't want to spoil anything since you haven't read it, but the third book was painful to get through.
Okay. How was the second book?
It was interesting. It was weird. It was a shift in gears because it was so different. But once you got through that gear shift and realized what they were, it was interesting. So, I mean, not any big spoilers, but the first book is the expedition into Area X.
Uh-huh.
The second book is about the government organization that is running those expeditions.
Oh.
And then the third book I won't even talk about, but yeah.
Okay. So read the second one still is what you're saying? Yeah,
the second one is interesting. And then after you read the second one, I mean, you're going to want to read the third one to find out what happens, but gosh, it was just not good.
It's so bad. I love the atmosphere of that first book. It reminds
first one was so good.
Do you ever read John Scalzi?
No.
He did like Red Shirts and Old Man's War. He does like sci-fi, but it's funny sometimes.
Okay. No.
So he has a series called The Interdependency. And the first two books are knock your socks off good.
Yeah.
Like the second book was even better than the first. I really liked it. And then everything I've heard about the third book is he just completely misses the landing.
Yeah.
And it's really disappointing because I like those first two books a lot. And the third book, you kind of need it, but I've had no interest to go back and read it because I've heard it's just bad. Maybe someday I will, but
that's what's kind of weird about Area X is the third book feels more like the first book. It's just not as good.
Okay.
Because like I said, it's a gear shift into the second book, and the third one mirrors the first one, but it's not as good. It's weird.
Well, maybe someday I'll read it and And the third book
you can just stick with Annihilation and say you read a good book.
Yeah, maybe I will someday. But Annihilation is so good.
Yeah.
Other kind of stuff like that. Before we talk about RPGs, we finished Last of Us, and
yeah, me too.
Damn, what a good show!
Did you play the game?
I did.
Okay, I never played the game, so I knew what it was about, but I'm new to the story just watching the show.
Yeah, so I will be very spoiler free here, but the scenes with animals, like are in the game, and when they show up in the show, like in the game, it's just like you go through hell in the game, and then you just have these beautiful moments. And I thought it was really cool that the show incorporated some of that stuff in various points. And I also just think, like, the show captured the message of the game, like, really well.
Yeah.
And I thought those, like, first 4 episodes were all, like, 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah. Yeah, my wife asked me about it because she knew I was watching it. She's like, what was it about? I said, it's like a post-apocalyptic zombie thing, but that's not really what it's about.
Right.
So,
right. It's about...
it's about the people dealing with it rather than the zombies themselves.
Yeah, and your own selfishness and your own love of your family, your own definition of family. And there's some really strong themes when you think about it there. And I think, Ding Dongs got upset.
Yeah. And just the chemistry between Joel and Ellie, that the actor and the actress are just, they're just fabulous. They're adorable together.
Great
Makes you
moments.
want to hug your daughter.
Yeah, no joke. Yep. There was some really good stuff in that show. Highly recommended. And the video game's great. And if you have a PS5, the remastered version is the best version I've heard. I don't have a PS5. I want to play the remastered version. It just has, like, quality of life improvements.
Yeah.
And just improve the game. But if you have, like, a PS4 or something,
how many,
good.
I guess they call them chapters, are there in the game?
Oh, I don't even remember. Okay. I have it on PS4, and I, like, fired it back up a few months ago for, like, before I was like, man, that show's gonna suck. But I did, and I just didn't stick with it. But when I originally played it, I was in law school, and I was just like, that's all I did was Last of Us.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that old. It's been a while.
Yeah, it came out on the PS3 first.
Okay. Have you seen the new D&D movie?
No, but I want to.
Yeah, I was thinking about seeing that tomorrow afternoon.
That'd be a fun little afternoon outing.
Yeah, taking the girls.
All right, let's talk RPGs, because I've been kind of like reshaping, like shaking up how I'm tackling RPGs going forward.
So I had a group over last Friday night to play, and we played one of the scenarios from the Cthulhu Dark Ages book.
Okay.
Do you have that book?
No, but I know what it is.
It is a fantastic setting book. It is just it is so in depth, where it's all medieval England, and most of the book is just setting stuff where, they've got the towns and villages and new, different character classes. They changed the sanity rules a little bit. So instead of, basing them on intellect, you base them on your religion score, because at that time people were superstitious. They'd see a monster and be like, oh yeah, that's a demon. But if you know the religion, you're like, wait a minute, that ain't in the Bible. Then you go crazy. So, it's so good. And I think there's 3 scenarios in there. You could easily string them in together in a small campaign, but there's enough in that book that you could just build an entire campaign out of that book. And it's really well written.
I had a realization a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, that I want both in my life Mansions of Madness and Cthulhu Death May Die. Meaning, I want 7th edition Call of Cthulhu, and I want you have no idea what's going on out there, and it's very procedural, and you're fragile, and if you start to understand this world, you're going to lose it. And then I also want Pulp Cthulhu, because what I think is missing now is I want someone who understands it, and they're going to fight back and kick their ass.
I have Pulp, but I haven't played it yet. But I'm the same way. I want the guy that sees a demon and pulls out his 45 and kills it.
Yes. And so when you mention this, that sounds super interesting to take Call of Cthulhu and put in the Dark Ages, because that sounds a lot like Between Two Rivers.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you could do a kind of a setting like that.
Do you mean Between Two Fires?
Between Two Fires.
Yes, and that's So if I was going to do a campaign, it would absolutely that would be my starting point, is that book.
So then now I'm wondering my understanding of how Pulp Cthulhu is you take Call of Cthulhu 7th edition and you change some things. You double HP and there's some different rules and sanity's changed.
You give they might not be called feats, but if you know D&D, you get feats. You get like special things that your character can do.
So then now I'm wondering, could you combine all 3? Because how cool would it be if you're like a Warhammer wielding, demon crushing, like badass that isn't afraid of no demons?
Yeah. Yeah, and you set it in a world like like Between Two Fires, where not only is there crazy stuff going on, but the crazy stuff is at a height. Like there's a war in the heavens going on. And if you are the badass with a hammer, they know you and they're coming after you.
Oh man. I might have to look into this.
Yeah.
I kind of like reassessed all my Call of Cthulhu stuff. It's like I will always have Call of Cthulhu, but like I got rid of the reprint of Orient Express. I'm just never gonna do it.
Yeah.
If I did do it, I don't want to run it.
Same
I want
way.
to play it.
Yeah. I looked at it and I thought I would like to have this. I'd like to play it. I'd like to run it, but let's get through Masks first.
And I'm getting rid of the big spell tome. Like I don't.
Oh, okay. I don't have that one.
I don't know why, and like this is just part of my like purge that I'm going on to make shelf space. In my limited Call of Cthulhu experience running stuff, I just don't know where that would ever come up.
Yeah.
Like you got to be pretty deep into it, but the characters are so fragile as they should be. But
yeah, my players, most of them come from D&D, and they've really just played Cthulhu one or two times, probably just with me. And like one of the questions I got, like, well, how do we do magic? I'm like, well, in this world, you probably don't, and if you do, it'll make you crazy.
Right.
So
yeah,
I even had one guy like there were some pre-generated characters, and one of them was a healer, and he's like, no, one was a healer and one was a priest. He's like, oh, I'll take the priest because I want to be the healer. I'm like, no, you're not doing magic. That just means you know a lot about religion.
Yeah, right. I haven't even cracked open the spell tomes. I just like I don't even see how I'd work them into my games, and maybe someday I'll regret it, but.
Yeah.
I'm way more interested in doing some pulp stuff, and now I'm kind of interested in pulp Dark Age Cthulhu.
Yeah, now that you got me thinking about that, because my thought was for this group, based on what they've expressed to me as their interests, I kind of wanted to go to something more typical fantasy, but not D&D, just because I don't really like D&D. So I don't know, some Savage Worlds or something, I don't know. But yeah, that might work too. Like a pulp fantasy Cthulhu could scratch all those itches.
Well, and Savage Worlds could do it because Savage Worlds Sanity. The other thing you could do is you take the Dark Worlds book, and I have two things that are particularly catching my interest right now. One is Index Card RPG.
Okay.
So this was in a video that was basically like, hey, look at all these alternatives to D&D, and I've basically got outside of a couple source books, like the Hellboy source book and the kind of Norse mythology Kickstarter source book, I'm getting rid of all my 5th edition stuff. Your level is in Index Card RPG. It's this kind of system agnostic thing, and it can do fantasy really well, is based off of the gear you have equipped. And so it's kind of an interesting premise. It's got a great look to it. I haven't played it yet, but I've been messing around with it on Foundry to kind of learn the core system. That looks very interesting. You could very easily take that and just, all right, we're doing Cthulhu. We're not going to play Call of Cthulhu. We're going to play this fantasy RPG, but we're going to kick some demon ass. And I'm sure you could add a sanity mechanic quite easily if it's not in there.
Nice.
The other thing, the thing I'm most excited for is finally diving into, in a very meaningful way and setting up Foundry modules, is Lancer RPG. So Lancer is from Mastiff Press. It is a mech RPG. You play both a pilot and you build your own mech. And that mech can be customized, and it changes out and gets even more and more badass as you level up. But it's two very distinct parts of the game. The narrative gameplay is very much in the same vein as Powered by the Apocalypse. You're going to do some kind of action and do a move. It's a little different here, but if you're familiar with Powered by the Apocalypse, you do a move. And that's all in the narrative play. And so when you're running around as your pilot and you're going out drinking with your friends, or you're seeking out gear or things like that, you're doing these moves, and then you're talking about, you're in the headspace of your pilot. And then it takes a very sharp shift to tactical mech combat when you have a mech mission. And it's the art and the world building is phenomenal. It's got a great aesthetic. The mech builders are like hilarious. One of them is basically like if you captured all the Cthulhu demons and turned them into mechs, like this is what they're building. Another one is like, oh, these are all the weebs. Super interesting world, really cool dynamic where you're both playing this very narrative pilot aspect, but then you flip and then you get into a very tactical mech combat with a bunch of badass weapons and cool mechs. Very excited to do.
I haven't even heard of this before.
Yeah, it's from Massive Press. They had a Kickstarter for it. They're sold out of their physical books. I'm really glad I have one. They don't know if they're going to do another run, but they're also working on a new game called Icons. And you can go to their itch page, itch.io, and you can get the free trial of that. And they're doing this playtest on Icons, and I assume at some point there will be a Kickstarter. But the fan base for Lancer is outstanding. There's one, Massive Press came out with CompCon, which is how you build your pilots and mechs, and it's like this whole web-based computer program. It's really cool. But like the fans have just put in so much work into building out the Foundry module and building beautiful maps and just all this cool stuff. It's very well supported. It's I was listening to the Lords of the Dungeon, and one of them said it's the game no one's talking about, but everyone wants to, or something to that effect. Like if you go join the Discord, there's like 30,000 people in there, but no one's talking about Lancer. And maybe it's just because they're all busy playing it. I don't know. But Lancer, very excited for it. After talking about this, I'm probably going to watch some mech anime before bed tonight.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's hard to... The world is so massive, right? Like you have... It's not just set in our solar system. And so that can be daunting. Like if you think of like all these big space operas and all these big mech animes you may or not have watched, like there's so much lore there. And so I'm like, I want to do this, but for the longest time I didn't know how. And so they've started coming out with full-size campaigns. Some Kickstarters have launched from fans, and now there's like 4 or 5 really recommended kind of intro missions or scenarios to gear you up into the world of Lancer. But then it kind of becomes your own. Like, yeah, it's massive, and you have this kind of core government, but you're on the outreaches of space, and it's kind of hard for them to enforce everything. So you can kind of take it in your own direction, or you can dive into a very rich and deep lore setting if you want. Sorry, you poked the bear. You said you want to talk RPGs tonight. And
no, definitely.
They've been in my headspace a lot.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know when my next game will be. We usually just kind of... We don't have a set schedule or anything. We just kind of play them ad hoc. And then I've got online stuff. It seems like it's been harder to schedule stuff. Tom's Town, we're having to get going.
Yeah.
Last session of Alien RPG with Hollywood, we're having a hard time finding a space for. So,
yeah, we're all overlapping. I'm trying to take some steps to like mitigate that, like on my own end. So hopefully, because now it's like, if I go 2 months without playing a game, I'm not enjoying it. I'm not engaging with it in the way I am. It's too infrequent. And so that's got to change. And that just means that things are going to have to get dropped. There's just too much going on, which is, I mean, that's just life. We're all busy adults, and this is an escape for us. And I want meaningful, deep engagement with the games I'm playing.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I want campaigns. I want long campaigns. Even like my Warhammer thing, it's really frustrating for me right now because with family schedule, I basically have to show up an hour late every time we play, and it's driving me nuts because I hate missing that first hour.
Yeah, and it's not even like if I had a regularly ongoing thing, a massive campaign would be cool, but it's not even that. Like, what if it was just, okay, we're doing this adventure and it's going to be 8 sessions. Mm-hmm. But wow, that would be really nice if that took 4 months instead of 8 months,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's where my headspace has been.
And I've been playing in college where we can just like stay up all night on Friday night and play or something.
Yeah, we asked our friends that come over and play games sometimes, like, hey, we're like, we have 2 kids. We don't go out anywhere. we would love to like make this a regular thing. Let's do this. And I had like talked to my wife and I have done some one-on-one role-playing stuff at the table in a role-playing game, folks. So I asked her, I was like, wouldn't it be cool if Chris and Lydia wanted to do that? And she's like, I like those things, but I don't want to do it every month. And I was like, chance.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, heavy on RPGs are in the forefront on a lot of stuff, and that's, I don't know, it's the games. I've really enjoyed my war games this month. They've been fantastic, but nothing was like this massive brain burner like Pacific War. You know, like that just takes so much to really sink into, and like I'd already played a little All Bridges Burning, and SCS is dead simple, and it was great games, but it was lighter games, and so then that's kind of freed up some thought space for RPGs, which has been great.
Cool.
Yes. Very, very cool. All right, you got anything else, buddy?
I don't have anything else. I think we're good. I
think so, too. I think it was a great episode. I think if people want to come hang out with us and talk RPGs, we actually don't even have an RPG channel, but we have a What Are You Playing channel. That'll work. If you want to come by and talk RPGs or Area X or George Smiley or war games or role-playing, whatever, come by our Discord. It's a great place to hang out. There's a link down in our show notes. You just click on that. You pop in. You introduce yourself. Say, hey, these are the games I like. We chit-chat. Gosh, I feel like last week we convinced one individual to dive into GCACW and another person was checking out Blind Swords. And it was cool. Lots of feedback on that. Someone's getting ASL advice. Boyd's getting ASL advice. There's just all kinds of different things going on. We're talking comics. We're putting together coin games, picking up Nevsky games left and right. Yeah, just stop by. It's a good place.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of good discussion there.
All right. I don't have anything else, Rich.
No, nothing else from me.
All right, folks. That's going to do it. Stop by the Discord. If you want to get a hold of us, you can send us an email, historytablepodcast@gmail.com, Twitter, Facebook, but really Discord, as we say every time, is the place to find us. If we don't talk to you before then, we'll see you next Friday for Coffee and Conflict, and later that evening, we'll see you for the Historical Board Game Awards.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone.
Good night.